Hello everyone and welcome to my YouTube channel RS Squared Technologies. I am your host, Ryan. And today I'm going to be doing a little teaser appetizer tutorial on how to make a 1" by 1" by 1" cube. However, my full in-depth tutorials are actually going to be from an unofficial guide through using two books: Beginner's Guide to SOLIDWORKS 2022, Level 1, and once we've built upon this book's techniques, we will follow it up with Beginner's Guide to SOLIDWORKS 2022 Level 2. When I get into those videos, I will leave in the link of the description of where you can purchase those books so you can follow along. Otherwise, if you don't want to, you can just simply follow along in my videos. Another thing to keep in mind is I am using a Windows-based version, which is the most popular specifically for SOLIDWORKS, and I will be operating off of Windows 10. So, without further ado, let's dive into making a 1" by 1" by 1" cube. So here I have SOLIDWORKS 2022 open. From here, we're going to go File, New, and that's going to open up the new SOLIDWORKS document. By default, parts should be selected. If not, I kind of wonder what you're doing with your software. So from here, we're going to choose OK. Ah yes, and just like that, folks, we have a beautiful blank canvas. We're going to be somewhat of a Bob Ross with this cube today. So one thing I'd like to mention is that because this is just an individual part and there's no plan to put this particular part into an assembly, your choice of plane of which you paint your 2D sketch on is entirely up to you. No, this is not Microsoft Paint. Just kidding. So let's go into this some more, shall we? So over here on the left side, you'll notice there's front, top, and right plane. Again, pick your poison. I'm going to choose the front plane. I love to make parts on the front plane whenever possible. Again, you will have a personal preference of where you'd like to start, front, top, right. You'll notice that once you make a part, it makes a specific orientation to the part. However, when you're doing assemblies, it may be important or be driven that you pick a specific plane that you make the 2D sketch for that part. Later in tutorials, you will see where that applies. But for this one, it's your preference. Have fun. I'm going to choose the front plane. I'm going to click the space bar. It opens up this little orientation dialog box. And this awesome little button here, Normal To, is what I'm going to choose. You could also hit Control 8 is the hotkeys for it. And that's going to bring my front plane Normal To view. You're going to find Control 8 or Normal To is something you're going to want to, that hotkey is something you're going to want to work with a lot in many different situations. It's going to simplify things for you. Once things get all wonky and upside down and you've lost your way, hit Control 8 to bring things back to Normal To, and then you can tweak it as you need. So from here, what we're going to do is up here in the top left, we're going to go to the Sketch tab, and then we're going to click Sketch. Now from here, I'm going to choose a center rectangle. You'll notice there's a little drop down arrow to the right, which gives you a couple of different options, but for this tutorial, we're going to stick with a center rectangle. Now, oh no, not quite a Bob Ross, but I do have myself a number 2 pencil icon there. I'm sure if you squint real hard, you'll see a number 2 on that pencil somewhere. Anyways, however, you will in fact see the icon of that little center rectangle that we chose from up here on this button right below the number 2 pencil. So I'm going to bring my number 2 pencil and I'm going to point on this point here known as the origin. When hovering over it, I haven't clicked anything yet, you'll also notice this little yellow box popped up, which is a relations icon. Further, the icon within this box is the coincident icon. I'm definitely going to go over relations in depth more in future tutorials, because relations and dimensions are super important to fully defining a sketch. And I can't think of a reason why you would ever want to leave anything in a sketch undefined, unless you have infinite reference lines, construction lines, which we'll get into those in later tutorials, what that even means. So, but for now, what we're going to do is click. And when I say mouse click or just click, I'm simply referring to a default left click. Unless otherwise stated, I will say right click. So we will click on the origin and drag in any direction. And just like that, we have started a rectangle and or cube, depending on the shape, you could argue. Now, it doesn't matter how big you make it right now, because we're going to define it with one dimension. So I will simply click, and then I'm going to, over here on the left, close the dialog. And making sure that this button up here, the rectangle button, is no longer selected. I don't want to draw another rectangle. I mean, you could draw rectangles all day long if you want to make some funky Picasso, but for this simple painting, no, we only want to use one rectangle. So let's continue. So the next thing we're going to do is select Smart Dimension. Now below that, there's a drop-down arrow for a couple of different more specific types of dimensioning, but for now, Smart Dimension is what we're going to use. It is adequate. So from here, you could dimension any one of these lines, and you could dimension all of these lines, which, depending on how you do it, 2 lines on this rectangle will fully define it, and any other dimension added will be considered reference dimension only. So we can only have 2 driving dimensions in this particular instance without over-defining it. I will get into much greater depth later about over-defining, under-defining, conflicts of relations, all that, because that can also be a problem, right? But for this one, I'm going to keep it simple, and I'm going to choose this vertical line here. And look at that. It just has a random dimension already chose, which is okay, but we're not going to accept it as it is, because again, we want to make a 1 inch by 1 inch by 1 inch cube. So we're going to actually define 2 of the dimensions within this sketch. And we're going to do it off of 1 dimension. This is super sweet. So type 1, hit enter, and just like that, you'll now notice something. Before, all of the lines in this sketch were blue. Again, that means underdefined. And you'll also notice that there's these green little boxes with icons in them. Those are relations that have been created and generated by just choosing the center rectangle option. So for now, we're going to keep it simple. We no longer have any further I don't want to use the dimension again. So again, we've defined this vertical line. We chose 1 and we hit enter, which closed us out of the Smart Dimensioning command. So now what I'm going to do is press and hold the Control key on the keyboard, select this vertical line, and then select this horizontal line. And then, voila, over here on the left, we have an Add Relations option. Quite a few different things we can choose from. Kind of logical what most of them are going to do, but for this particular instance, what we're going to choose is equal. And just like that, this horizontal line and this vertical line are equal. They have the same dimension, 1 by 1. And as a result, this entire rectangle, which is now a square, is fully defined. Yay! We're almost there. So now what we're going to do is, you could exit out of the sketch and then go into the Features tab and choose the next command. But I'm going to make it a little bit, again, simple and potentially more efficient in this particular instance. I'm going to go up here to the top left. I'm going to go to the Features tab. I'm going to choose the Extruded Boss Base button. We're going to click that, and look at that. 3 dimension has appeared. Whoa. So, What we're going to want to do here under the boss extrude command is we're going to change the direction reference, but we're going to leave the from sketch plane. We're going to leave that as the default for now. This direction 1, we're going to change this to midplane to center our extrusion. And then under D1, we're going to choose 1 and hit enter. And then we're going to simply hit OK. And just like that, we have a beautiful cube. And if you're wondering how I'm making the cube move as such, on my mouse with the center scroll wheel, I'm pressing the center scroll wheel down, which allows me to manipulate the cube as you see here. If I just left click and drag, I get the selection. And if I right click, you get kind of a wonky gizmo thing. But if you want to just spin your object around, you simply click your center mouse wheel, or you can be more precise by pressing your space bar. You can choose the front view, any of those front, side, left, right, back, down, up, or I can choose an isometric view. So that is it. Here is your beautiful cube. You've completed a simple tutorial in SOLIDWORKS. Congratulations. Thank you for checking out my channel. I hope you'll subscribe and stick around, and I will see you in future videos. That is all for now. Take care.